Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Continuing our focus on tackling graft, we've got Mr. Eric Ifere, who is a member of the National Prosecution Coordinating Committee. He's a legal practitioner. He joins us from Abuja. We also do have Emmanuel Anene, who is also a legal practitioner and also joining us from Abuja. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Let me start with you, Mr.
Thank you, Tumbale.
Yeah, Mr. Ferry. You're of the National Prosecution Coordinating Committee, and many have said a lot depends on investigation and prosecution. If they don't get their acts right, you just may not have a lot of things go right concerning the fight against corruption. How much progress can you say that we've made in our fight against corruption?
Well, thank you so much for that question. Corruption has been described by social scientists as a very wicked problem. And I say to you, and it's very, very clear that corruption can never be completely eradicated in any country in the world. It can only be controlled. It can only be reduced. And the government has a pivotal and serious role to play in the control of corruption in this country. And it is very, very clear from all that has been going on that this government has made it a serious problem it intends to tackle. And the government has been doing all it can to make sure that corruption is reduced to its minimal basis, to the minimal stage, and to the most minimal, incidents of corruption in this country. We must give kudos, but at least this country, the government of the day has been making it very clear and sounding it to Nigerians that it will not tolerate acts of corruption. But we must bear in mind, like I initially said, that corruption is not something that can completely be eradicated. So far, so good. I will give at least 60% to this government. But on the other hand, let us see that this way, that corruption, trying to eradicate corruption is not something that could only be done by the government. We must have that psyche within us as Nigerians that we do not want to accept acts of corruption within our society. All of us, there must be that psyche, there must be that feeling, there must be that positive move by all Nigerians that, listen, any instances of corruption would not be tolerated in our national life. Because if you look at corruption, it does have a very wide definition, and corruption is very complex. And we have taken corruption in based on our cultural leanings and our cultural feelings and our cultural perception of life. In everyday life in Nigeria, corruption has eaten deep into our own system. For instance, we do favors to people, and in extent, we also expect these people to do favors to us. And we think we are just being showing some kind of hospitality. We don't want to call it corruption. And then we begin to curry favors for our personal use based on earlier favors done to these people. Yet, we don't want to see it as corruption. We hold offices, and we want to take from those offices and use the process of what we gain there for our personal use. And we think, like Nigerians will usually say, you eat where you work. What is all of these are acts of corruption. But like you did say, and you did ask, I think the government has done so much, and the government is still working towards seeing that it does at least reduces corruption to its minimal basis. All right.
Let me ask Mr. Anene, do we appreciate what Mr. Ferry has said, that, well, government is doing what they can to ensure that this challenge is tackled, and that they will also keep doing more, perhaps open to corrections where we point them out?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Once again, thank you for having me this morning. My colleague here gave the APC government 60%. So the question is, What happened to the remaining 40%? Coming on board, this government made fight against corruption one of the cardinal policies of this administration. The only policy they brought now, to the best of my knowledge, is whistleblowing policy. So what happened to it? They could not even pull the policy through the National Assembly. Now, the government said they are fighting corruption. Look at the dictionary definition of corruption. Any offense involving dishonesty. Nepotism is corruption. Favoritism is corruption. If you ambush due process of law, that is corruption. If you twist the system for your own selfish gain, that is corruption. Now, Mr. President made himself the Minister of Petroleum by fiat. He did not submit himself to National Assembly for clearance. That is breach of the constitutional provision. Now, when we come on board, we heard about Dasuki Gate. Today, Dasuki is being prosecuted. He has taken his bail to the Supreme Court, ordinary bail. And the government is pretending that they are fighting corruption. And Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and even the lower court has repeatedly ruled that you should not use bail as a punishment. If the government is serious about prosecuting a Dasuki, why would it take them 2 years to determine the bail of a Dasuki? Now, look at the corruption involving SGF. They set up a committee. When we have EFCC, ICPC, police, a committee was set up to investigate SGF. Up till now, there is no report of that committee. Now, there is the recent one, $25 billion awarded by NNPC, an agency in Ministry of Petroleum. Now, the question is, $25 billion is 9 trillion. Well over Nigerian budget. Where would NNPC fund that contract? That's the question. What is the purpose of that contract? Is it to build a refinery? Is it to build a refinery in the air or in the sea? What is the purpose of 25 billion naira contract? The vice president said he didn't approve it. He approved loan. Now, Mr. President is asking the National Assembly to approve a loan of 5.5 billion when NNPC is awarding a contract of 25 billion. Who will pay for that? Who will pay the loan? Now, look at the case involving the MTN. Look at how it was handled. Nigerian Communication Commission fined MTN. All of a sudden, somebody came from the air, and the rest is history. This government is not fighting corruption. This government, at best, can be said to be fighting financial crimes. If they are saying they are fighting corruption, if you, like I said earlier, if you ambush the process, that is corruption. If you favor your people, that is corruption. If you twist the system, that is corruption. The government is not fighting corruption, and they're not willing to fight corruption. What happened to high-profile cases in Nigeria? What happened to ICPC? They have gone in coma. EFCC has lost all the high-profile cases in Nigeria because of apparent lack of capacity to fight corruption. They don't. If you see the charge filed by EFCC and some of these agencies, you laugh. You weep for this country. It's unfortunate. My case said he's a member of coordinating committee for prosecution in Nigeria. That is exclusive preserve of the Attorney General of the Federation by Section 174, Section 2 of 1999 Constitution. That is a non-delegable duty. He cannot delegate that duty to anybody. It is his role to initiate, take over, or discontinue. Now, if he creates a committee, and give that committee I have a line of thought.
Yeah, apologies. We need to go to break, but we hope that you don't lose your line of thought, because we will come back to that and then also get Mr. Ifere's response to that. Don't go away, everybody.